let's not waste any more time. I'm with Austin Price, my main man. Surprised to see you here at Texas Roadhouse and on the golf course. That's first and foremost. Well, let's not waste any time. Speaking of the golf course,
another guy that likes to play golf.
But not this time of year.
No.
And that's head football coach Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy, man, we really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight on the Nation. Vols coming out of their, I guess it was your last full scrimmage of the preseason. How'd it go?
You know, Chris, there was a lot of good. We have a lot of guys that have experience, and we've got several guys that are new to the program. They wasn't here in the spring. They have a lot of potential. So, it's pretty obvious the guys that have had multiple years under their belt when it comes to experience, and the guys that, heck, this is their 14th practice, so it shows. So just got to keep coaching them up, and players have really good attitudes, and got a couple of more weeks to keep working here.
Jeremy, and that sort of segues what I wanted to ask you next. As you look at this team, this group of players out there on the field, what is most different now as you look at this team compared to this time last year?
Well, I mean, I hadn't really thought. I'm really just thinking about the team that we have right now, and we have a quarterback who has some experience. We've got guys up front on the offensive line. Maybe the same combinations have not played together, but off and on over the last couple of years, there's guys that have some experience there. Got some experience at the skill positions on offense. Defensively is where it's not as near the experience that we have on offense. And, our specialists are returning, so there's some familiarity there in the second year in the program.
Jeremy, it's Austin. How much urgency do you see with some of those veteran guys? I mean, I know you talked about some of the younger kids only being here for 14 or 15 practices, but they're obviously making some plays, and they're extremely talented. Do you like to see some urgency out of your guys when you hit this point in fall camp, when you've got about 2 weeks left before Georgia State?
Well, we've had a really good camp. I think we've got good leadership on this team. With good leadership, you need to have some guys that are willing to follow the leaders a little bit. And I think I've said for a while now that, we really have a good vibe in our program. Everybody has a good understanding of the expectations every single day. And you've got guys that are holding each other accountable to those expectations.
Hey, Jeremy, it's Chris again. One of the things, sort of doubling back on what we were talking about a minute ago, and I know in the conversations the two of us have had over the last year, and this is the case everywhere, you're always wanting to get faster and create more team speed. Do you see that in this group, not only offensively but defensively?
Well, we're definitely we definitely have more team speed than we had last year. Are we where we need to be yet? Probably not. But our guys are working hard. I think our coaches and our players have a good understanding of what we're trying to get done. They've been efficient with their time at practice, and I've seen improvement from the spring to the fall.
You go back to the offseason, Coach. Maryland comes hard after Craig Fitzgerald. He elects to stay. For all the talks of Henry To'oTo'o and Darnell Wright and Quavaris Crouch, is maybe the biggest person that you got, to stick around in this program, Craig Fitzgerald, just because you look at your team, they do look a lot different than they did a year ago.
Well, I think Craig and his staff have done a really good job, along with Rachel Feaster, and she's our nutritionist, and her staff. And you got to throw in the training staff too. They all work together there. Geronimo Boucher and Dr. Flink, they work really well together. So these guys have worked hard. And there's good bodies and good frames to put on some weight, and the players have to be willing too. So it's there's a little bit of give and take there, and I think our players are excited about where they're at this point in time, and I know they like to go to work every single day. So when you like to go to work, you have an opportunity to improve and get better every day, and our kids are doing that.
Jeremy, it's Chris again. I know you want to keep stacking recruiting classes on top of recruiting classes. That's the only way you're ever going to win in the SEC. You've been enough places to know that. As you look now, though, at the competition on the practice field, and granted, you've had just a couple of classes, you bring in guys like, Pruitt and Wright and some of these guys, one named Morris. What have you seen along those lines? Have you been able to create more competition, and what has that been like, not only right now, but in the spring leading up to where we are now?
Well, this time last year we couldn't practice the way we practice right now, just based off numbers alone. And we're still, there's most of our football team, we're probably only at 2 deep, so we've got to continue to recruit at a high level. We only have probably 6 to 8 seniors that will play this year, and we got a young football team, so we got to stack another class. And this will be the first class that we've signed 25 guys in. When we took the job on December the 7th, we had 12 days to the first signing class. I wouldn't really consider that a signing class, so we basically had one.
Right.
And we couldn't sign 25 guys, so we can sign 25 guys in this class. So the big thing to me is the players that are here that were here before I got here, that are still here, they've worked really hard to try to transform their bodies and really done a nice job. So I like our team. I like the direction we're headed. Are we where we need to be right now? Probably not, but we're headed there in a hurry.
Jeremy, having gotten to know Trey Smith, his dad Henry, sister Ashley, the last year or so, and I get to ask this all the time, is he really as good a kid as he comes across? And my answer is always the same: absolutely he is. And I know we all have Trey as a person in our thoughts, but the other question is, where is he football-wise? Do you guys know yet if he will be available to play this season, and when might you know?
Our medical staff has worked really hard throughout this entire process. Number one, to ensure Trey's safety and health. The football has always been secondary. First and foremost, it's been his health, and we'll continue to do that. Trey's still involved with the team. He's worked hard every day, and and as we get closer to the season, our doctors and training staff, they'll implement a plan that will give him an opportunity to possibly play again.
Jeremy, how do you feel like you've adjusted to being a head coach? You're now, in year 2. Where have you seen yourself grow as a coach? I mean, obviously a well-acclaimed defensive coordinator, but now that you're an established head coach, from the moment you took the job on December 7th to now, where do you feel like you've gotten better?
Well, I thought you was talking about growth there for a second. I was going to say the first place is my waistband. I got to do something about that for sure. But just, it doesn't matter what you're doing. When you do something for the first time, you learn a lot of things about yourself. You learn some things that you do really well, some things that maybe you don't. And so you got to adjust. If you're doing something that you're not having a lot of success at, don't continue to do it, right? So I think the longer you do something, the better you get at it. And, the second time around, we'll be more efficient with our time and use the men that we've got in our program, because we got a great coaching staff, and use and lean on those guys.
So, Jeremy, this is Chris. So what you're saying is your wife, Casey's a pretty good cook. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Casey is a great cook.
Talking about growing as a head coach.
But she's always been a good cook. I just got to find time to get my exercise in.
Hey, brother, we're all there. I can promise you that. In going back to being a head coach and wearing all the hats that it takes to be a head coach, especially in the SEC and everything you got to put up with, managing the program. It is, the more I do this and the longer around the sport, the more I marvel at coaches that are able to do it at a high level. What's key there? Whether it's, compliance, recruiting, everything that goes in, managing kids, for you, what is key there to do that, to be able to manage a program of stature at University of Tennessee?
Well, I think the big thing is all fan bases. I mean, the first thing they want to do is win, right?
Sure.
So they want to have a winning football program. Well, there's no secret that the teams that win, and I've been on a lot of them that have, they won because they had the best players and had some of the better players, right? So there's a lot that goes into managing a program and having a plan, but it starts with the product that you're going to put out on the field, and it starts with your players. Good job in recruiting, evaluating talent, and character.
Jeremy, as I look around college football and the team, you talk about the teams that win. The teams that invest and reinvest in their programs typically are the ones that win at the highest level. You go out and you go back and look at your staff this year, who you guys were able to bring in, the money you paid, to bring in a Jim Chaney, a Derek Ansley, a T. Martin, right across the board. How do you like, or what do you like most now about the mix of this staff?
Well, just starting on the offense, with Jim, T, Will, Chris, David, Brian. These guys, number one, they get along really well together. They work well together. They're great teachers, good recruiters. And they want what's best for the players. None of them have egos. They're here to help make Tennessee be great again. Same thing defensively. Derek Ansley, Kevin Sherr, Chris Rump, Tracy Rocker. I mean, and it's just top to bottom in our whole program. Most of us have worked together. You get up here and you start working and you look at the clock and it says midnight, and you're wondering where the day went. So you enjoy being around. It's not like going to work. So we've got some bright guys on our staff, and I would put them up against anybody in the country.
How much do you feel like Coach Chaney, I mean, obviously he comes well acclaimed. He's done it every which way possible, although he did admit to us in a media setting a couple of weeks ago that when he ran the option one time, that's when he got a little heat. Just because he can coach all the different positions, Jeremy, how much does that just make everything easier when he can go help Will for a practice on the offensive line, or go to the quarterbacks and help Chris, or tight ends with Brian Niedermeyer, so on and so forth?
Well, if you look, all of our coaches, they all could do it. All right? T. Martin could coach the quarterbacks, the running backs, the offensive line, the wide receivers, with all of our guys, right? They all can do that. That's what a football coach is. So, and if you can do that, you have better understanding of how to develop your guys. These guys could go coach on the other side of the ball. So we've got some very knowledgeable guys that are great teachers, are good people. The players like them, and we're excited all to be together and have an opportunity to work together.
You talked about the big rotation of linemen that you had yesterday in the scrimmage, and I asked you a week or so ago just about the quality depth that you have along the offensive line now that maybe you did not have a year ago. How important is that? Because I know when you got here, as far as just pure bodies, it was low compared to what you're used to when you were at Alabama or Florida State and so on and so forth. Do you feel like you're kind of getting to that point? I know you're not there yet, but getting to that point where you feel like, hey, we've got some real quality depth along the offensive trenches?
Well, I think we got some competition. We're really about 2 deep with competition. You need to be probably 3 deep at that position, and that's kind of the theme to our whole team. If you talk about having 33 guys on both sides of the ball, that's 66. We're not there to where we got 3 deep at every position, and most of them just 2 deep, right? So, but that's much better than where we were this time last year. I can assure you that.
Take me through Eric Gray's game. When you watched him in fall camp, about what you thought coming in, more impressive? I mean, just kind of break down what you saw out of him through the first 15 or so practices.
Eric's a mature guy. You don't have to tell him something but one time, and he gets it. He doesn't take any plays off. He's a very good competitor. He shows up every day to go to work. He flashes. He flashes as a runner. He flashes as a blocker. He flashes on special teams. And that's what good football players are supposed to do. They're supposed to go to work and I'm sure Eric Gray's never run down and covered no kickoff before, at Los Angeles High School, but he's doing it here and he's doing it pretty good. That's what a football player does. So,
does the blocking part surprise you? I mean, just based off the fact that may not be something he's really worked that hard at coming in, just because he was always getting the ball at high school.
No, Eric's a tough guy. He's very detailed. He's organized. Again, he's a guy that has maturity to him. You don't have the success that he's had unless you're that type of guy, he's a guy that I'm pretty sure he had a 4.0 or a 3.9, GPA his first semester here too. That's just kind of who he is. So, he's a guy with character and works his tail off every single day. He's a team guy.
Well, Jeremy, we're going to get you out here in a second. Going back to Jim Chaney, and you mentioned Gray and some of these other guys. I know, having known Jim and followed his coaching career for a while, one of the best things he does is get guys the football and get guys the football in situations and spaces where they can do something for it. And I'm sure as you were looking for offensive coordinator last year, that's probably one of the things I would imagine about him that jumped out, and the fact that he's done it at a high level at a bunch of different places.
Yeah, Jim, he has. He's done it a bunch of different ways, and he does a really good job of figuring out who his playmakers are and finding a way to get them the ball and not asking guys to do something that they can't do. Lots of times hey, here's our system. This is who we are. But you know what? If it don't fit, it's probably not a good system. You got to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are on both sides of the ball, and you need to play into that.
Well, Jeremy, man, we really appreciate the time, and I want this out there for the record. I think your Fort Payne / Rangeville English is exquisite. I just want that out there for the record. All right.
All right, I appreciate it, Chris.
Listen, man, thanks a lot. We look forward to catching up, and I hope when you played golf this past off season with Austin, he didn't take too many mulligans or too many foot wedges out on the course.
Jeez. I can tell you this: he was the best dressed on the course.
I guarantee you that. Probably a lot of Masters apparel, too. Thanks, Jeremy, man. We appreciate it. See you, bud.